Hi guys, so this week we are going to be doing a project that's pretty fun for the holidays, but we're also working with color mixing. So hopefully you watched that video, it's super fun about colors, and learned that when we mix two different colors together, they make a completely new color. So we always start off with red, blue, and yellow. Those are our primary colors. And then if you mix, say, red and blue together, we get purple, and that's how we get all of our colors in the rainbow. So typically as an artist, when we're color mixing, we're either using like something like crayons, colored pencils, paint. Painters mix a lot of different colors together to get new shades of each color. But today we're going to be color mixing with tissue paper. And tissue paper is super fun because it's a little bit see-through. It's very thin. So if you get it wet or layer it on top of another color of tissue, it kind of helps us color mix and make a new color. So today we're going to be making Christmas ornaments by color mixing with our tissue paper. And maybe you and your family have some tissue paper that's left over from your holiday celebrations. If you are wrapping presents, you might have some tissue paper lying around. Of course, if you do not have tissue paper at home, you could always draw with crayons, with colored pencils, even with markers, and try some color mixing and then cut out a shape and make that into an ornament. That would be a great thing to do if you don't have tissue at home. So if you do have tissue at home, the first thing that you will need is a piece of paper. And it doesn't have to be white paper like mine. You could use any color of paper that you want. But if I'm using, say, a yellow piece of paper for my background, and then I start laying blue pieces of tissue on top of it, it's going to turn my blue pieces of tissue green. So be thinking about the color of your background and then what colors you're going to lay on top of it. So after I have my piece of paper, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trace a shape for myself that I want my ornament to be. So for today, I'm just going to be making some round ornaments. So I found a cup that's about the size that I want, and I'm just going to take a pencil and trace around my cup. Now, if you find something that's a cool shape in your house that you would like to trace around, like a star or a heart or something like that, that would be a fun option too. It doesn't have to be a circle, or you could make up your own shape. So what I'm doing is I'm tracing 2 circles on my paper because I'm going to be making this ornament 2 different ways depending on the supplies that you might have at home. So now I have my 2 circles on my paper, and that's going to tell me where I should glue my pieces of tissue. So for the first one, if you only have a glue stick at home, this will work, but you're not going to see as much color mixing with your tissue, but it still turns out really nice and pretty. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glue stick, and even if you have a purple glue stick, it ends up drying clear, so don't worry about that showing through your tissue paper because it'll dry clear. So I'm just running my glue all the way around my circle, and something that you want to be really careful about is not getting any clumps of glue in there. Like every time I get a little chunk of glue, I'm smoothing it out, because if it's chunky underneath our tissue paper, it's just not going to look very nice. So I've put a really thin layer of glue all over my circle, and now I'm just going to start taking my tissue paper squares and gluing them down. If they run off the edge of your tissue or of your shape that you've traced, don't worry, because we're going to be cutting this out later. So you can see when I layer these on top of each other, it still kind of gets a little bit of that color mixing there. Like that definitely looks purple to me. And any of the overlapping edges, if you're using a glue stick, you will have to lift up with your finger and just give it a little dab of glue underneath so that all of those edges are laid down on top of each other. So this is a great thing to do if you don't have liquid glue at home. You can see by laying the green over the blue, it made kind of a turquoise blue-green color. That's really cool. If I lay the red over the green, it's going to make kind of a brown color. And I'm going to lift up that little edge and just put a little dot of glue underneath to glue that down. Okay, so it's a little bit messy with a glue stick because you kind of have to use your fingers to lift up the edges and then to smooth it down, but that's okay. That would be a great option. The second thing to do with your ornament is if you have liquid glue. So for this version, you will need liquid glue, and then you will also need a little brush of some kind, unless you want to get your fingers really messy. If you don't mind getting your fingers messy, that's okay. Make sure you're protecting the surface you're working on so you're not getting glue all over a table that your grown-up really likes. And then I also went and pushed up my sleeves so I'm not getting glue on my outfit. So for this, I'm going to put down a little bit of glue just on one edge. I'm not going to cover my whole circle with glue like I did with the glue stick. So I'm going to be patient and shake it until a little glue comes out. And I'm just going to give it like a little drizzle on this edge. We don't want to use too much glue because if you use too much liquid glue, it's going to get a little clumpy. And I didn't rinse off my paintbrush from yesterday, so it's leaving a little blue in my glue. So I'm spreading that around with my paintbrush. And if you have a paintbrush, that would be a really good idea. If you don't have a paintbrush, you can of course just spread it around with your fingers. You're just going to be kind of sticky. So maybe use one hand to spread the glue and then one hand to lay down your pieces of tissue. So now I'm just going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to lay down my pieces of tissue so that they're all kind of overlapping each other. And then I don't have to worry about the edges of this one because I'm going to go back at the end with a final layer of glue. So I'm just sticking down these pieces, making sure some of them overlap so I get that really cool color mixing. And I am going to go rinse out my brush so it doesn't turn everything else blue. All right, so now I have a clean brush. It doesn't look clean, but it is. And I'm going to, now that I've covered all my sections where I put that first layer of glue, I'm going to add a second layer of glue over here. And you're trying to work sort of quickly before your glue dries. So I'm going to dot it all around. I'm going to spread it with my brush or my finger. And again, it doesn't matter if you're going off of the edges because we are going to cut these out when we're done with them. So now I'm just going to continue laying my pieces of tissue so that they're overlapping all over my ornament until it's full. Okay, and then when I'm all the way done and every part is all filled in, and then I'm going to, you can see I've got a lot of these little loose edges that I had over here. But what I'm going to do now that's going to even make my ornament a little bit shiny once it's dry is I'm going to put a little bit more glue on top. And I'm just doing a few dots, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe 7 dots of glue. You want to start out with just a little bit, and then you'll take your brush or a finger and you're just going to spread that glue back on top of your tissue. And it might lift up some of your edges, so you might also have to work with your hands to spread those pieces back down. So actually my finger is working pretty well. So if you don't mind getting a little messy, that's a good way to spread it. And I'm making sure that all of my corners are laid down flat. So I don't have a lot of wrinkles in my tissue paper, and I'm not drowning my ornament in glue so that it gets all soggy and gross. So after I've kind of spread it around with my brush, I'm just gonna go back over it with my fingertips, which will get a little sticky. I'll have to wash my hands after I'm done. And I'm just smoothing down all of my pieces of tissue with that glue on top. And if some of your pieces of tissue lift up, that's okay. Just smooth them back down with your fingers. There I go. Okay, so the very last step, if I want to add something kind of special to the middle of my ornament, I could ask a grown-up to help me cut out a really fun shape and then glue that down into the middle. So if you want to try cutting out a shape, remember our scissor safety. You're cutting away from your body and away from your fingers. And I'm going to glue down my little star that I cut out right here in the middle. And you can see that red is poking through my yellow star, and it's starting to look kind of orange, which is fun. So I'm just going to put another little layer of glue with what's left on my brush on top of that. Smooth down the edges. be patient with this glue. And then I'm gonna let that dry. And when it's all dry, I'm gonna cut it out. And then I'm going to get a hole punch, and I'm gonna punch a hole in it. And then if you have some leftover ribbon, or I had some leftover twine, then you can run that through your ornament and ask a grown-up to tie a knot in the top for you. And then you can hang it from your Christmas tree, and it's going to be a lovely little ornament with all of your color mixing experiments on it, which is so special. If you do decide to make this project into an ornament and hang it on your tree, it would be a really good idea to write your name and then the year that it is on the back, so that you can always remember what year you made this ornament and learned about color mixing. So you could write 2020, Christmas 2020 on the back, or ask a grown-up to write that for you. That would be really special. So we hope you guys have a lot of fun color mixing with a little bit of a different material this week, and we can't wait to see what creations you guys come up with. Have a great rest of your week and a good weekend. Bye.